All right, guys, welcome back. It's Friday night. That means it's time for the Creative Cranium. Got some great guests tonight, and we have a topic that I've been waiting to talk about, which is what are your earliest inspirations? I can't wait to hear the answers tonight. Before we jump in, some of us are new. Let's introduce ourselves to the crowd. Ready? Christopher, tell us what you're known for and where we can find your work.
I am known for trying to run a Kickstarter for a comic called Clovitch. You can find the work on Facebook and Kickstarter. It's past my bedtime.
I appreciate you coming. I know that 10 o'clock spot is a little hard, and I'm going to do some high-level negotiating with Nita to try and get a better spot. But let's jump over to Warren. Warren's first time we're meeting. Great to meet you, buddy. Tell us who you are and what you're mostly known for.
My name's Warren. I go by Lunchbox Warren. That's where you can find me on all the social medias. I'm known for my ongoing series, The Adventures of Sig and Joe, a black and white 44-page issue 1 comic that's out right now on Kickstarter. And I'm colorblind, so it keeps me from being able to really do some pro coloring, especially on digital. So I try to develop more of this gray tone kind of style that has the cell shading, so it looks almost like a black and white old cartoon. So that's kind of what I'm known for right now.
This sounds great, man. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what you're making, and it's nice to meet you. Man, I got to say hello to one of my favorite people who was there at the very beginning of the podcasting days. Of course, I'm talking about Carissa Grant, who I know who you are. But why don't you introduce yourself, Carissa, and tell the viewers what you're mostly known for?
I am mostly known for merch galore. Merch, apparently, is my name. And I'm known for apparently Worthy Chaos. I am also known for having jumped into this without any knowledge whatsoever and having a Kickstarter every other month. So I started a year and 4 months ago, and I currently have issue 10 live.
Nice.
I'm also known for being way ahead. So issue 16 is now being inked. So you're getting your comics, and my Kickstarters, when they end, I ship within 48 hours. So you get your stuff pretty much within a week or two.
That's nice. And congratulations on your many successes. I think that's a terrific product you got there. So guys and girls, let's jump right into the questions, right? This is what we want to know. So I was thinking about the earliest inspirations. You know, I'm always interested in what people are making, but to a greater extent, I'm interested in why they are making it. Christopher, I'm going to start with you. When you were very young, was there a moment when you saw something, and it could be any inspiration, and you said, "Hey, I want to make something"?
Yeah, actually, okay. So I was hoping someone else would go first, but this is fine.
I got you in the hot seat.
I have two actual inspirations, and they are both from the same era of my childhood. I was about 10 years old or so. We live in Texas and Arkansas, and so my grandparents, we lived with them, and they watched country westerns all of the time. It was the worst thing ever for me, because I'm a kid. I don't want to watch that. But my grandmother would have one show that she would watch with me. It was just ours, and it was Farscape. If you guys are familiar. Yeah.
Wow,
and so,
pretty good one. Hey, so a quick question, slightly up. So were you kind of a nerdy kid? Were you what kind of kid were you?
Absolutely a nerdy kid. The whole country stuff just did not mesh with me.
Click. Got it.
Yeah,
got it.
and being able to watch that with her was fantastic. And then there was one other show that we ended up watching that was the only other non-country thing, and it was wrestling. WWE Raw, right? And just a note on that, it's not about like the physicality of these guys; it's about the showmanship. So you have like Ric Flair, who can cut a promo in front of an audience of 10,000 people, and everyone in that audience feels as though he's talking directly to them, and that showmanship was just incredible. Yeah, there's Farscape.
Christopher, I think you got a great point there. I've mentioned this. There's a curious connection that goes between wrestling and comics, and it's probably more popular now than ever. And I think you nailed the reason why. It's the theater of it, right?
Absolutely, theater is incredible. And just as a side note, for those who don't know, there's a man who named Roman Reigns who defeated Undertaker, and everyone was furious. The next night on Raw, it was about an 11-minute segment of Roman Reigns standing in a ring, completely silent, didn't say a word in that ring, the crowd just jeered him and booed him so loud. He didn't have to do anything. He just stood there, and that's the showmanship. That was just incredible. It was an amazing moment.
What's up, Mr. Corkum? Good to see you in the comments. Yeah, I appreciate the answer, Christopher. That's a great answer. And I think that, first of all, can I ask what year that was, or roughly how old were you?
My childhood time is really wonky, and I don't remember it. I'm going to say 11 or 12, but I really can't remember.
And this is just to help us dial it in with the group. Let's jump over to Warren. So, Warren, I'm going to ask you the same question, right? Was it approximately the same age? What was the first time where you saw something and said, "Hey, I want to create things"?
I've been drawn since I was old enough to hold a pencil, just doodling and doing other stuff along those lines. But it was around, it was in the 5th grade. We got a Nintendo, and with a Nintendo, gave you a free year subscription to Nintendo Power.
Oh my God,
and
I love
then,
that.
In Nintendo Power, they started publishing a Super Mario Adventures strip. And this is the first time I've ever really saw a comic. The artwork just jumped
Hold on, I'm going to give you a solo,
me.
brother. Go ahead.
The artwork just jumped out at me. And really it was cool. It inspired and drove my love for comics from the point that I discovered this bad boy. And from there, eventually I discovered Joe Madureira, who was doing his Uncanny X-Men run.
Right.
And then I fell in love with his art style. And from there, it was just, rabbit hole of comics up until I was in the Army, and I found indie comics like Eric Powell's The Goon, Preacher, Sin City, stuff like that. And
Great stuff.
Re-energized me.
Would it be fair to say that, are you a writer and artist both now?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So, but it sounds like your initial influence was visual influence. Is it fair to say
it was
that?
all visual initially. Yeah. I didn't really, I never really pulled the trigger on making comics until I was older. And a lot of it was just confidence in the size of the deal. But then now that I know a lot more about writing, I absolutely love writing as much as I do drawing. But when I first started, it was all art. I bought comics purely because he was doing the interior art. I wasn't even paying attention to the story half the time. So,
you know what? It's funny. I totally get that because I'm the other end of that equation. I buy them based on who wrote them. I was that way even young. So let's jump over to Carissa, right? Same question for you. If you don't want to say how old you were, I don't want to be insensitive and ask a woman about her age. But if you no, I didn't mean now. You didn't have to say that on the air. If you want to talk about when you were very young, what was your first influence? How did you know that you wanted to make something? What was it? Do you remember?
I'm not embarrassed about my age.
I don't hear that about you. You guys are all youngsters to me.
Yeah. So I didn't think about making comics at all until like a year and a half ago. But I was inspired by horror at age 6 when I saw Dream Warriors, which I wasn't supposed to. I was hiding on the stairs.
Yeah.
And there was a scene where it's a very horrible scene where he's using the heroin addict as a marionette puppet. And I was fascinated by this because it looked freaking like out of this world. Like this was like a whole other world.
I think I remember this. You and I talked about that. You got some good ones. Yeah.
So that was the horror of it. The second movie I saw was not as good, was Cujo, which I was fine with until I went to a park and there was a giant, slobbery, muddy Saint Bernard running around, and then I wasn't as thrilled with the movie. But other than that, what got me into writing was Resident Evil 2. For anyone that knows me knows it's Resident Evil 2.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I bought PlayStation 1 just to play Resident Evil 2 because I saw a commercial of an alligator jumping out to get Leon. And it's really funny because I never talk about this part. Alligators were always a part of my dreams. So I'm wondering, I hadn't even thought about it till a year ago, not even a year ago, if that had any reason why that affect, because I have no idea why the alligator coming out of the sewer was any kind of inspiration whatsoever to play this game. But I always had, since I was the age of 5, I had a crush on Leon. So until since the age of 5 and up, I always dreamed about an alligator. So maybe that was some correlation to it. I don't know. But because of that, I started role playing as Claire Redfield. No
kidding.
Yeah, I role played her for like 15 years, and I was dyslexic, so I was a one-liner, and I started really short. But after like 15 years of writing, I can now sit down and write like 4,000 words without even moving. So I got a little bit better than the one-liners I used to write. So it's a mix between Resident Evil and then Supernatural, because I was fascinated by Supernatural and these the fights they used to go after and the hunts they used to go after. So I merged that with Resident Evil to create this story. So it's like a Supernatural Resident Evil kind of thing.
Nice. Yeah, and some great influences there. And you and I talked before about the Stephen King thing, and we both go way back into Stephen King. And I'll just make a quick mention. One of mine, The Stand. I think we might have mentioned last time, which also had a great mini series. I don't know if you guys ever saw that. I think there's two now. There was a new one with Rob Lowe, or excuse me, the Rob Lowe is the good one. There's a new one with, who's the guy in the new one? Do I have it? Actually, Rob Lowe is in the new one, but he plays a different character is the way it works.
An homage.
But in any event, I'm a huge fan of The Stand, right? But so let's keep the same question, but we'll turn it up a little bit. So we got a pretty diverse group of influences, right? Horror and sci-fi and games and wrestling and theater and stuff. But it doesn't really answer the question, why comics, right? Like, and this is the part that I'm always trying to figure out, because we're a pretty interesting bunch. So Chris, I'm going to switch back to you. Like, at what point did you say, you know what, I should try and make my own comic? Tell me about that moment, if you remember it.
Oh, yeah. I can. You're talking. You said Chris, all right? I wasn't sure.
Oh, I said Chris, but okay.
Go ahead.
No, you can have a turn. It's okay. I'll sit back. On mine, Warren actually pointed out Preacher. Preacher was probably one of the first graphic novels that I finished start to end. Yeah,
absolutely.
And then it went to Sandman. That was the other one I ended up finishing. Sweet Tooth. There's so many just incredible things, and then you read these and then you're trying to share them with your friends and no one knows what you're talking about, because they don't read them, right? And it's not on TV. And I'm like, this is such a crazy, incredible art form. And then just it's always been off and on. I wanted to make a comic. I just never could, but I thought the medium was just incredible and I wanted to be able to be part of that.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. It's one of those media that when it grabs you, it's almost like you can't escape it. Warren, how about you? Was there a moment where you said, you know what, man, I'm going to create my own comics? And what happened in that moment?
My moment when I decided to start making the comics was 2016, and I always circled around wanting to do it. And it was books like Eric Powell's The Goon that really inspired me. The way you can mix comedy with action and then throw in a lot of heart and drama, because The Goon's almost parody at times. And then all of a sudden you're weeping because you find out what happened to him in his past or along those lines. So, I just got to the point where it's like, I want to try to do this. And when I was reading, I started looking into the indie scene. The first indie book that really caught my eye was Robert Power's Penguino. And when I saw that, how much fun, anthropomorphic characters, wild setting, and I was like, okay, I want to make this. I want to have something like this that's zany, fun, and wild. I was following a lot of inspiration from Tyler Carpenter, who's in the chat. Watching his videos, watching how he was putting himself out there, watching how he was creating. A lot of that was sort of my pivot point, was when I was reading these books. I wanted to make it. And then when I saw what other people were doing in the indie scene, I was like, you know what, I want to try this. And then I dived into it head first.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing that I find the community to be very nurturing. So, and I should mention some of the influences that you just mentioned were in mine too, because when you talk about, and actually, Chris, too, just to touch on what you said, the Vertigo line of those years sort of made comics cool again. And I'm referring in this case to things like, I think Preacher was in the Vertigo line, right?
Oh,
and Sandman was, and Doom Patrol was in the Vertigo line. Animal Man, Swamp Thing, all the kind of weird ones had kind of like cool, spooky comics, which make us circle back around to horror, right? So, Carissa, in your case, Resident Evil 2, by the way, I've played them all. I didn't want to steal any of Carissa's thunder, but I'm a pretty avid gamer myself. So I'm going to ask you this question, because sometimes people ask it to me. So you switched over to writing and creating instead of developing. Was there ever a case where you said, hey, I might want to make my own game?
Yeah. I would love a survival horror just in the same fashion as Resident Evil 2, the third person. I didn't mind the second person, but it wasn't as much fun to me as the third person, where you could just walk around and do whatever and interact with anything. So if I was to do one, it would be a survival horror, obviously with my characters.
Which would be amazing in a video game, by the way. Just saying.
Oh no, trust me. I looked up how to start it, where to price it. It's like $100,000 to start.
Yeah.
But,
when you're at conventions now, I don't know if you notice that's a thing. Guys come around to you and they say stuff like, they usually tend to be Asian, I'm just saying, but they say, hey, I'm a video game developer, I'm from Hong Kong, and I bada. And that's like a sales pitch. But Chris is not wrong. What they're looking for is seed money, and they know that we know how to make Kickstarters. So I'm sensing these two things are connected.
Yeah, there's two things that I would love to do. Everyone's like, oh, who would play in your movie? I don't want a live action anything. I want a video game, and I want it rated R for violent adult animated series. I don't want live action. There's 108 issues, and it's still going, and I just feel like it would be more, I don't know, it's just more befitting. I would rather have animated than live action any day. So
yeah, I think I might be there with you as well. I kind of prefer that. So, and I see Brian in the comments. Brian, I'd like to ask you that same question. Why did it lead you toward comics instead of video game making? And Carissa, how about you? Was there one minute where you said, you know what, for me, it's going to be comics then, instead of, because I'm sensing that you were probably close to making a game.
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted a game. It's only price that I didn't go straight for the game.
So let me ask the question a different way then. Would you say that it's one of the things for creators of comics, we sometimes have what they call a lower barrier to entry, because it's not like making a movie or a game, like we can get our whole world across on a page. Would you say that if cost was no object, would you be making a video game right now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I actually knew.
My co-writer even looked into a cheaper version to do it, because there's some programs that you could do it where obviously it's not as graphic and all that. So she actually had looked into it. So yeah, that's a total price thing. Hey Vic, by the way, his cover is available as a variant in mine live now in Kickstarter. Search Worthy Chaos and you will see Vic's awesome cover.
Nice. We'll take a look at that in a second. His new work looks amazing.
Yeah, I have like 6 from him, and I haven't even gotten to the third one yet. I used one in issue 8, and I was the first one to make a comic from his cover, so he was thrilled. And I love his art. Love it. But I can remember the moment that I decided to do a comic, because I knew that our writing style, especially mine, it wasn't skilled enough for me to ever be a novel. So it wasn't something that I ever thought would happen, is me printing it as a novel. Because I'm an amazing storyteller. I give myself complete credit for the storytelling, but I'm not a very good writer. So the way I write actually, and I didn't realize it when I was writing it, but it just fit the comic so well. Like, it's just written like it's supposed to be a comic. And I didn't even know that. And also the fact that because we're 2 writers, I wrote Serafina and my co-writer wrote for Draven. The chapters are split in half. So to read it wouldn't make sense to a normal person. You'd have to read the chapter twice.
Right.
So the point of what happened was, I was just printing out covers for us to rewrite our own story. So I was going to print out like 2 novels for us through lulus.com. And I wanted an artist just to do a cover for us. And I couldn't find an artist, and that's Vic's cover.
It took me a second, but I wanted to have it while you were talking.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I said, I was trying to look for an artist to do our covers, and everything was so cartoony. And I'd asked my co-writer, do you want cartoony or should I find something realistic? Because when we were writing, we had actors in mind. And she goes, cartoonie's fine. And like a light bulb went off. And I was like, well, if you don't mind cartoony, I could do a comic book. And of course I said the infamous and wrong words of how hard could it be? It is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So, and I've started like 3 businesses in my life. So, yeah, I shot myself in the foot there. But yeah, it is the best thing that I've ever done and the hardest thing I've ever done. But I absolutely love doing it. And now that I've done it, I feel like it was meant to be a comic the whole time. So.
Right. And sometimes, I guess I'll just throw out, sometimes the success happens on one thing while you're busy doing something else. We've talked a couple of times about how I started with writing these scripts for animation for Socket, which is going to be the next big thing. And it was rejected every time. And now here it is 5 years later. And I got a whole slew of my own books that are selling. Like, this is what I do now.
Because
Like,
you're awesome.
Well, yeah, you're very sweet, Carissa. Thank you. But I don't think there's too much danger of me breaking into animation at this phase. Well, and I don't even try because I'm too busy making comics. So let's jump back over to Christopher, right? So let's get an idea, when you were putting out your first book, how long ago was that?
Still now.
Listen, we're just meeting for the first time. So is this your first book?
This is okay. So we did an anthology. We got accepted for one of those, and we did one of those. That was called the O Anthology. But this was our main project. And
well, congratulations, Christopher. That's on me. I didn't realize that. Hey,
no,
listen, yeah, good for you, man. Because, and by the way, I think the other guys on this and girls on this panel will agree to this. The hardest thing is getting it done when you first get out of the gate. So you're already ahead of 98% of creators.
Absolutely. As Carissa keeps mentioning, jumping in head first, thinking, "Oh, this is going to be easy. This is what we'll do," is exactly what we did. So this is like a 3-year project that we have, and it's like tons of art, and all these little pieces are finally fitting together. So this is the first one that we're putting out right now.
Well, that's great. And I'm going to go slightly off the questions then. What is your plan for, like, is it an arc? How many issues? Give me the 1,000-foot view for Clove Hitch.
Head first, when we first planned it, was going to be 65, 68 pages. As we were doing it, we realized, wow, this is hard. I learned that, wow, lettering is hard. I learned how to letter, and then I learned that it was wrong. And so I had to relearn how to letter. And then there's just all these things. And the artist I use, she got burned out at some point. And so you're like, I can't do this, right? Like, we got to slow down. And so we found a good point to cut it off. And so this is the first issue, and everything that we get for this is going to pay for the rest of the second issue. So this should turn around, and it should be a 2-comic arc. And I plan on just immediately getting it out as fast as we can.
Well, good for you,
that's
man.
Head first too, so we'll see what happens.
And seriously, from the bottom of my heart, congratulations. You did it, brother.
We're trying.
So now let's jump over to Warren. So Warren, I think something I didn't realize about you. So you're doing the writing and the art.
Yes, I do everything, but I have an editor, and my editor also letters for me too. So
do you want to give your editor a shout out?
It's his name is Max Weston. He's the creator of Welcome to Blue Water and also the soon to be released Wavelight. He's on we work together as we're business partners on dailygrindpress.com, and that's where you'll find PDFs of his books and soon to be more of my books too after the Kickstarter's over.
So so you got some publishing action going on here, right? You're jumped in the whole way.
Yeah,
I'm saving some of this because Carissa's going to tackle this. But the funny thing that happens when you're making comics, you end up being a publisher. Is that what happened to you?
Yeah, I started in this just with the idea of I'm going to try to make a comic. So there was a long road to make issue 1, but then I finally got issue 1 done, and then I've already made issue 2, and I'm almost done with issue 3, and that now I'm just running the Kickstarter for issue 1 because when I started this, I wasn't working on any marketing. I had no idea how to sell myself. My project wasn't made to be marketable necessarily. I wanted to
hold on, stop there. I want you to expand on that. Yeah. What do you mean by? No, it's okay. Sometimes guests say stuff, and I want to know what they mean a little more.
Yeah,
not made to be marketable. What does that mean exactly?
What I mean is I had no attention to what was popular or what was in the themes. Like, I didn't look around and say, okay, what genre is the most popular? All I was cared about was making a story that I would want to buy and that I would find creatively fulfilling to make while I learned how to make comics. It wasn't until this year that I'm like, I need to market this, and I need to learn how to do that, market myself, build an audience. So now I'm starting to shift gears from the creative part, trying to go more into the business side.
Listen, you're speaking my language. That totally interests me too, right? So I'm going to just do one question on that, and then we'll jump over to Carissa, which is, so when you say you're diving into marketing, man, marketing's hard. I think we can all agree on that.
Oh,
what kind of things? What kind of things is Warren going to do?
Right now, I've been very active on Twitter, posting, reposting, being involved with other people. Since the Kickstarter started, I have gained 200 followers on there. Just being consistent and being friendly and talking with people. I'm doing the TikTok videos and trying to build up an audience there. I'm starting to try to live stream art while I draw more often. Cool. But my biggest problem is consistency, and in marketing, consistency seems to be the most. You got to be there
every week. The customers will be there if you're there, right? I totally agree. Yeah. So I didn't mean to steer into marketing because I know that's another topic, but since we're kind of on it, I know Carissa is really interested in the marketing too. And we sometimes say things like, what is the best method to approach this? You know, me personally, I know that social media is going through another shift. We hear about it all the time, right? Carissa, what kind of things are you going to try in your current marketing campaign? Anything new, improved? What are your tips from Carissa?
So originally podcasting is the only way I did it. But then when I had this, this lull of time between October and January, when I wasn't having a Kickstarter, which by the way, it was awful. I had no idea what to do with my time. But I started for fun at first to interacting with people on Facebook, and I started posting questions to people, and it went crazier than I thought.
I've seen it. That's a pretty good one, Carissa. That's a pretty good one. Yeah.
And posting the questions got so much interaction that what I realized was happening, because I like to respond to every single person, because it's probably something to do with the dyslexia, whatever issues I have. I don't like that people think that they're being ignored. So I have a really hard time thinking that people are forgotten. So I have to reply to every single one of them. And in doing so, created this interaction between each person. And then we wound up in each other's feed. So when I post something about my Kickstarter, it wound up that more people saw it. And I actually wound up getting way more followers than I originally had.
That's a great idea. And as I'm fond of mentioning, the best way to get somebody to buy something is not to keep hitting them up to buy something. Yeah. They want to discover it. They want to find it, right? So in a case like this, they'll see Carissa's question on the feed. Who's that? And you hear all the time about how the algorithm is broken. It's not. It's people aren't using it right. She's using it right. That's a perfect example of what an algorithm does.
And I have had a couple of people be like answering questions and be like, oh, I checked out your profile. I didn't know you had a comic. Or they'll say something like, if one of my questions is, what show was the most inspirational? What's your favorite show to watch? And if they say Supernatural, I'd be like, oh, I have a Supernatural inspired comic. That's why they're my favorite too. So it created this, this going back and forth. And that was actually because Twitter used to be my thing. I have 5.3 thousand followers on Twitter. But the algorithm there, even when I interacted,
I never got any customers from Twitter.
I was fine before, and I don't hate Elon Musk or anything. It's just before him, I had views. And then after him, even when I paid for the stupid check mark, I did not have views anymore. So I kind of gave up and I went to Facebook, and it was just a lot easier to interact with people. And I hate to say it's more enjoyable. I prefer Facebook over Twitter.
And you got to do what you like too, because the truth of it is some of the social media platforms are not that fun to use. Like, look, leave me alone already about Threads and Blue Sky.
I hate Instagram.
Like that one?
I hate it. I hate Instagram.
Oh yeah. I don't get any traction there.
I found it hard to find people I want. I had a hard time, searching for things that I wanted to connect with. It was just awful. Twitter, I never go on there. I have like 1,200 followers, but I just don't ever interact with it. So Facebook is really the one thing that stands out for me. It's just worked for me, whether I like what's his name or not. So
yeah. So a great answer. Thanks for sharing it. And I didn't mean to go off the topic, but I'm always interested in what you say about that. Because by the way, once you guys start hanging around, you're going to learn. That's what I always want to know, because we're always trying to figure out the smarter way. And
marketing is marketing. Marketing
right. It is the hardest part. You know what I mean? It's the hardest part. So let's jump back over to Christopher. Christopher, getting back to the influences, when you were making this book, this is Clove Hitch. Did you consciously say, hey, well, I want it to be a little bit like, and try to work one of your influences into it?
Not consciously. Actually, when I saw that this was the question, I had to really think about my influences. and I went to Farscape, like I said, and I started looking at it. And I was like, oh yeah, let me try to remember what Farscape was about. And I was like, oh, there's this pilot who's basically stuck to the ship. I was like, oh, that's something I accidentally stole. Okay, great. Like this,
Yeah.
so
That's
no,
a good
not
thing though, man. That's a good thing.
I guess.
If you're stealing from the best, I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, but no, not consciously. I didn't realize until like thinking about this question and looking at it and really going, oh, this is really where all this stuff is coming from. So
Yeah. And that's something that I'm very interested in. And we're going to circle back around to that. Warren, I'm going to ask you the same thing. So when you're making your projects, and you can look at it, from any angle you like, whether it's art or writing, do you ever say something like, well, I'm really influenced by X?
Yeah. When I was learning, I went to a lot of different properties, and I was trying to understand how they were making their stories so enjoyable the way I liked them. Like, I discovered Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, the anime, while I was making Sig and Joe, and it showed me on how you could take a traumatic event, which in that show is the Fallen War, and how it connects characters that have no connection because they're all connected by the trauma of this event. And another big huge influence was Firefly and Eric Powell's Lagoon. Both series have humor almost on the level of parody, fun action, and then really soft, heartfelt moments. And that was always the big influence of mine, because I absolutely love that, where you're laughing at one moment, you're having fun, it's wild, and then all of a sudden you're getting a gut punch and you learn a lesson, or there's some heart in there. So yeah, a lot of my influences came from like the Goon, from Firefly.
This is really interesting. And first of all, thank you for that thoughtful answer. I really like it. And so it's a little bit more of a writing influence for you than an art influence. Is that the case?
Yeah, a lot of it is was learning how to write and structure. I mean, there was a lot of art trying to learn how to do interiors. Like, sequential art is its own art form, and I learned that the very painful way. And
okay, hold on. Again, I want to know, when you say I learned it the very painful way, what does that mean?
When I started Singing Joe, I was on Webtoons, so I drew regular comic book pages, and then I cut them up and made the Webtoon stroll, and then I lettered them. When I went back to print it after 56 pages of art, I realized I left no room for lettering. So I was like, okay, do I redo these pages, or do I take this time? And I actually restarted the whole series. So it's 56 pages of warm up, and then I restarted the series, tweaked my art style, and then learned to make sure I left space for lettering this time. So
yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's a great tip. And that's really interesting. See, like, I would guess that like your way is a little different than me. And again, I don't want to get off the track, but so can I ask you then, how do you make your page? Do you start out with an art layout, or do you script it first?
I started off before just kind of with an art layout, and then what I had going in my head. But now I do a full script, and I have the dialogue pretty much done. Then when I do my layouts, I'm looking at the dialogue and I'm making the layouts, because I find working with the script and the dialogue when you're constructing layouts really helps out the flow, where you can hear it because there has to be a symbiosis between the lettering.
Exactly. Listen, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. Listen, we could do a whole just about that. See, I like to hear about how people make their pages, and I want to ask Carissa about her pages too. But first, I want to ask you the same question as those guys. So when you're making your scripts, do you have any element where you say, hey, I really want to work in a Resident Evil influence, or a Firefly reference, or like, do you consciously try and work that reference into the work?
No, not consciously. Or were you talking? I'm sorry.
Carissa next is.
Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Carissa.
Well, remember, I wrote my story first, so I have 13 novels written. So when I was writing the novels, my influence was definitely Resident Evil, Supernatural, Silent Hill. When I'm doing my scripts, I just focus on my characters and their expressions and remembering what the hell is in the room. Because one of my favorite parts about writing is if I want something on a table, I don't have to remember it 50 pages ago. I could just say, hey, I grabbed this thing off. But now I have to go back in a comic and write it, or draw it in, or whatever. But no, for my scripts, mine's a little different. You know, I've done a lot of things like he did. I've done a lot of things over again. Like everyone knows that or most people know that I had to redo issue 1. Even though everyone told me not to, I, threw away the $5,000. And
I was
like,
one of the people who said not to.
Yes, you did. Every 15, 20 people I asked, every single one said no, but one.
Customers like the rough books. They still buy Action 1. Looks like the guy drew it with his foot, if you ask me.
Well, it wasn't that. It was just that it wasn't the same. It wasn't.
Yeah, you do have, and plus you were also making the collected at the time, so you had
but what I mean, there's like I'm redoing right now. I'm redoing the lettering from 1 through 7. So if anyone wants the originals, you got to get them now because they're about to be reprinted and then never seen again. Because my artist originally lettered for me, and he didn't know what he was doing. He knew well enough to read it. It's great. But now that I can't afford it, but I'm going to do it anyway. We're redoing 1 through 7, all the lettering.
Now that you know about pro lettering, that's a thing.
And also SK started issue 8 through, he's done 8 through 14 already,
Yeah, you want to give him a shout out? I love that guy. Go ahead.
Oh, SK is amazing. He's redoing my issues 1 through 7 now. I have a whole production line, like my artist draws while my colorist is coloring the one before, while my letterist is lettering the one before, and like I said, we're in the middle of inking 16. So my colorist is in the middle of doing 15, and my letterer is doing issue 1 because he already finished 14. And because he was redoing it, I have to say, at first I was, grumbling that I was paying a couple grand just to redo the lettering, but I went back and I realized that now that I see the art, when I originally wrote my script, I screwed everything up, and my letterer is like, did you want to see any of the art or did you want all dialogue? And I was like, well, so I had to redo my script, and issue 1 became the first 3 issues, just so I can get all of my dialogue. Well, now that I can see each panel, how big it is, how much room there is, I'm actually adding way more stuff to it than I originally had. Yeah. Plus the emotions might be different than I had asked my artist to do, or it had been done differently. So I'm actually redoing all the scripts. And before I came down here, I was on redoing issue 15. So I go back through the books, I find more thoughts and things that we said.
Can I ask you a quick question about that? Sure. And a friendly reminder, remember, there's no wrong way for somebody to make their page. This is how I learned it, is by asking a lot of questions. You probably figured it out. So, and I'll ask everybody this. But first, Carissa, when you make the page and you have your dialogue and stuff, do you give it to the artist, the page, and let him interpret it? Or do you make your own panels? Or a little of both?
So, well, a little bit of both, because the way we compromised after we did issue 1, because issue 1 we did not go well. But after we worked together for one whole issue, I realized that he needs more room to do his influence. And a lot of people don't give the artist that. So what I did was I cut back from 8 panels to 4 panels, and then
oh my gosh, yeah, your writer's going to kill you with 8 panels.
Yeah, no, well, he actually turns them into like 6 to 10 panels. Like, he does his own thing, but I give him the 4 things he needs to add. I do panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, and then he turns it into whatever panels he wants.
Gotcha. Let's do a quick survey of everybody. So Warren, yours is probably similar, right? Because you can board your own panels right away.
Yeah, mine with my process is I let the script tell me how many panels and how many pages the story is going to be, because I'm not, when I do the script for it, I don't have anything like panel 1 Joe says this to Sig. To me, it's just, I know what they're saying, and then I figure it out in the layout process.
Yeah. Christopher, how about you? You want to jump on this one? In your scripts, does the artist interpret your scripts by the number of panels? Or do you say, no, panel 1's over the shoulder, panel 2 is reverse silhouette? Do you board them out yourself?
I try to have it's by page, and then I try to do the panels, but then she'll send a storyboard, just a real quick sketch storyboard. We go from there. Real quick, though, ESK, shout out to him, too, because he has been one of the most incredible people I have ever met in this the whole place, this whole indie community.
He's Australian. That's the only problem. Other than that, though, he's pretty cool. No, but by the way, he did me a solid too. He's got me sort of hooked up onto this one of the things we try to do is a library tour. Again, we got to try some new things. One of mine is I try to get the books stocked into libraries. But hey, let's switch around. The show's not about me. So I want to hear a little bit about what you guys are making, because I'm, now that I learned a little bit about why you did it and how you did it, I want to take a closer look at some of the projects. Okay, so we're going to start out here with my high level production. As I prepare to get this image on screen, I'm going to delay with some words while it takes. There it is. This is called Clove Hitch. That's on Kickstarter right now. Christopher, tell us a little bit about who is going to love this project.
Anyone who loves sci-fi, comedy, things like that. Like I mentioned before, Farscape, we have Douglas Adams was a huge influence for me when it came to writing. If you read, I believe they call it a trilogy, but it's like 5 books of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And then It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That's also comes into play.
This got a little humor rocking in it too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's if you look at the cover real quick. Are you able to pull that up?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you scroll down to the cover and then look at the right-hand side, we have a little hand there that's been smashed, and that's my favorite thing about it, is a little Easter egg of the kind of stuff that we're trying to do with this story.
That's a nice looking book, man.
Oh, we're so excited. I'm so excited.
So somebody that loves Farscape, somebody that loves Douglas Adams, they're going to be loving Clove Hitch.
Garbage, folk punk, anything that you want. It's just about cleaning up trash, man.
These are all things that I love. Do you have a quick, like an elevator pitch?
I have worked on an elevator pitch. I do not.
By the way, that's something we do here. Let's practice one. No judgment. Just practice, and we're all pals, right?
Yeah.
Let's hear one.
You put me on the spot too much. It's you see the robots get blown up in space. You see the debris, and then when the debris hits something, it's going to damage another ship. So you need people out there who are going to clean that. You need to figure out who takes care of that problem, because we're making the problem all the time. All the little space wars are nothing but problem. So this is where you have the Clove Hitch, where they clean up the loose ends.
Christopher, this sounds terrific. You're being very humble, but this is a really cool concept.
We're trying.
Yeah, man. I wish you every success with it.
Thank you.
So, and by the way, if this is successful, when I say if, I'm sure it's going to be successful. We'll do a little call to action. Go over right now.
Yeah.
But what is step 2 after this one is done?
Step 2 is, like I said before, this was supposed to be a 65-page graphic novel. It turned into a 35-page for this one. The next one's going to have a couple extra pages to it. I want to have 2 arcs that'll complete a main story. And then if that's successful, we're just going to keep going until we finish out a whole overarching thing. But this is start to finish, 2 books should be done.
What do you guys think? I think this looks solid.
No, I think it looks really good, and that was a good elevator pitch too. I've been working on mine, and it's not an easy thing to do.
It's so hard.
Christopher, I thought you did a good job, man.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So let's jump over to, this is the next one, right? The Adventures of Sig and Joe, issue number 1. So to start off with, Warren, tell us a little bit about who is going to love this project.
This is going to be, it's very, this story is very Adult Swim, late night cartoon, very awkward, people who like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Venture Brothers, Firefly. It's a very sci-fi adventure story. There's going to be a lot of heart in it, a lot of family. So if you like the Firefly, Eric Powell's Lagoon, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, some Mad Max in there, some Blade Runner.
Nice.
They're fighting robots. They're fighting biker gang wastelanders. They're fighting an evil corporation. It's going to surprise you, because when you look at it from the outside, you think it's going to be like a silly parody book. Then you open it up and you're like, oh wow, there's a lot more going on in here. So,
by the way, once again, the influences that are in these are great influences. Like, they're all things that I like, right? So I'm thankful that you guys took some time to describe what these inspirations were. Because like I say, if you like, there's a reason why Amazon says things like, if you like this, you might like that.
Yeah.
And it's really the easiest way to lead somebody toward what I call the discovery. So call to action, The Adventures of Sig and Joe. That's on Kickstarter right now. Go over and pledge with confidence. This looks like a good book, man. I really dig the influences. And of course,
the first book is done, ready to print. I've already did a print run. I already have all the stuff to cover the Kickstarter at my house. So this is going to be packaged and delivered as soon as the money clears on the Kickstarter. We've already made our goal the first day. Issue 2 is already done. Issue 3 is almost done. This train is moving. So
got a quick question, right? And I'm going to ask you the same thing. You set the goal kind of low, right? 500.
Yeah.
You obviously knew you were going to do more than that. Are you trying to do the thing where setting the goal low and hitting it fast gives you a boost, allegedly?
Yeah, I was trying to do that. And plus, since I do everything on my own, my overhead costs on the production of the book, like I said, I've already got a print run. I don't have to hit a certain goal in order to get the book made. Right. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try a smaller goal and see how that works with the algorithm and along those lines.
I'm fond of telling my best campaign was one that I ran for $500, and it funded in like 20 minutes or whatever. But allegedly that gives you a little bit of an algorithmic boost. So maybe
I was on the search for hot projects pretty high up there for the first couple days, but then the campaign kind of flattened out in that middle road. So then I wasn't back on there again. But
gotcha. Well, let's talk again about the Vic Medina cover. That's coming from Worthy Chaos. Call to action. Hey, if it's Carissa, you know this book is coming out, so you don't have to worry about any kind of fulfillment issues. This is the 10th, Carissa?
Yep.
Okay. Issue number 10, buy with confidence, and very well received. And you got SK as a letterer. What could go wrong? So, I'm a fan of this book, but Carissa, tell us a little bit about who will love this book.
And if you want to scroll down a little bit, you can see another cover that's actually pretty popular. It's the Ivan Tao cover. It's from the Marvel artist, that one.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and it's a very popular cover. Obviously, because on me, everything's already printed. So here's the metal, and here's the other one. I already have printed up to 13. Anyway, so this is Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Supernatural in Silent Hill in the world of Resident Evil. It has horror. It has underlining love story that you don't usually get in horror, but it's a big underlying thing here. It follows Angel Descendant Seraphina and Demon Descendant Draven, who are trying to stay alive against their fathers, who are after the angelic weapon that Seraphina was created out of. If they find this weapon and they can take it from her, it'll tip the scales of the war between heaven and hell in either one's favor. Unfortunately, it needs Seraphina's soul to activate it. And once her soul is gone, Draven would be left alone. There would be no reincarnating and no afterlife whatsoever. So it's a survival horror story, and their fathers throw everything at them. They fight through a town merging with hell, zombies, Anubis, hellhounds, ghosts.
Memorable characters.
Yes, vampires.
I like about how, if you don't mind me chiming in right here, one thing that I think that you do nice in your pitch, well, by the way, I didn't want to show the number, right? I didn't want to bring you bad luck.
Oh, no, that's okay.
It works the influences right into the pitch. It's Buffy meets Supernatural on Resident Hill, or I'm messing it up.
Resident Evil. No, you're right. You could read it if you want and scroll.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's take a quick look at that, because you guys know I love pitches, and it's something that, like we were saying, it's hard to do, right? And it's hard to find the right length and so forth. But I think this is a pretty good one. A fight for survival against destiny and the forces of the underworld. Think Buffy, TBS, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and Supernatural. Vroom, it's all right in there. So first of all, those are all pretty good influences, right? Like, you're going to get some customers. But the second thing is that, how do I want to say this? The brevity's better. A short one's better, and the most you can sort of cram in, right? Like we sometimes say a pitch, and I call it the 11-second pitch. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but in many cases, there's what they call the elevator pitch. And we'll talk about this because maybe you guys will disagree with me. There's what they call the elevator pitch. That's, hey, it's Carissa and I going from the 2nd floor to the 7th floor. I got about 2.5 minutes, right? And give a little more details. The other one is the 11-second pitch. You're at the comic convention, which is 90% of what your sales will be. You've got to get it across in 10 seconds to that person, because right next door is Christopher's booth, and then Warren's booth, and then Carissa's booth. So, you got to set that hook kind of fast, right? Brian, what do you think? Is that too fast?
Yeah. I usually say, do you like Buffy, Supernatural, Resident Evil, or Silent Hill? And I usually either get I love whatever or I love all of those. There's either one or the other.
Yeah.
So that has worked pretty well. Unfortunately, it they have to hear me. So I do the smaller cons. It works.
What do you mean
better.
by hear you? You mean you don't go to enough cons?
I no, because the cons that I had tried, some of them were too loud. So like, and I'm an Italian New Yorker, so if you can't hear me, there's obviously an issue. It's not me. But like Lexington was way too loud. Everyone was running back and forth. There was the speakers going off. There's loud music. You can't hear it. So like I couldn't even talk to people. They couldn't hear me. But in Nashville, where there's no noise whatsoever, I actually made 3 times the cost of my table because I was able to talk to people and it was a more relaxed environment. I did a 1-day show in Gatlinburg. The table was $40. I made 3 times that, 4 times that, and it was a tiny con, but it was great because everyone can hear me. And
I love tiny cons. Listen, let's take a quick second and touch on conventions. And I hope you guys and girls don't mind because I'm going off the topic a little
you can
bit.
call me guys. I'm okay with it.
It's a funny world, Carissa. You and I are friends, but I don't want somebody to say, well, he says guys. And she's
I know.
Okay. But where I'm going with it is that at conventions, I've found, as one man's opinion, I know do 5 or 6 smaller ones rather than 2 or 3 big ones.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. I tend to be, again, I'm not a big shot or anything, but it helps me to be, I don't do as well if the people are there to see a Hobbit or William Shatner. The fact is they don't care about me.
That's why Fanboy didn't work for me. Did I tell you, by the way? I think I told you, right?
I don't think you did.
That I'm going to be a guest for the first time. I got asked to be a guest.
Oh, where at?
So Knoxville at CreepyCon, August 2nd through the 4th. I had sent her the books last year when I was there. She gave me free tickets and it's like, oh, here's my comics just for,
You'll
whatever.
Do right there. You'll do right there.
So she sent me a thing saying, oh, we'll pay for your table, your meals, and your Wi-Fi, and you just come and sell your books. So
nice. Let's go around. Let's ask everybody that. Christopher, are you going to go to comic conventions to support Clove Hitch?
If I could, we have a small town. Actually, friends with a promoter guy who's trying to do a Comic-Con here. He asked me if I would come, and I don't think I'm going to be able to make the print run for that. But next year, if he does it, I will absolutely do one.
And if you ever are on the road, sometimes I tell the other people this, if there's some way for me if I can rep your book or if you want to team up, I'm a guy that does that. Let's switch over to, because look, the simple fact is, sometimes teaming up is the only way that we're going to be able to make it to some of these shows. It's not perfect. I'm not going to tell you it's perfect, but in some cases, that's the difference of me getting to Dallas or not. So Warren, how about you? Do you do conventions? Do you have a tour? How do you do it?
I'm actually doing my first convention in August. It's
first one ever?
First one ever.
Oh, congratulations, man.
Yeah, I'm super excited. It's in my small little hometown. They're doing an alien convention, like a sci-fi channel, not sci-fi channel, but like Discovery Channel, Area 51 stuff. And I got a table there. So I'm doing a special one-shot comic just for that convention. I've got some artwork signed up for it, or making just for that.
Okay, so the one-shot comic, is it a thing that says the city and the year on the front of it?
Yeah, it's actually, the town's called Longview, and it has a really big love of squirrels. So we have like a bridge across the road so the squirrels can cross over and not get hit. So I incorporated the local city park in the town, and it's a story on why the town loves the squirrels. It's because they saved us from a pint-sized alien invasion. So I got the squirrels fighting aliens. They're riding ducks like horses, and it's like this whole little 17-page one-shot.
I think this is gold, brother. This is yeah. And one of the things I want to mention, these con books are also highly collectible. When you go to, because I'm a comic book collector. I think maybe you guys know this. There's people that go to conventions and they will buy the convention editions of the books. You know this already, I can see. But like I collect the Batgirl comic convention variant.
Yeah.
And now I sell my own at conventions and I slab them. This is maybe another conversation, but it's $100 version that I sell.
Okay. Yeah.
And I took them to Philadelphia, which is a little bit of a ways for me. And the guy said to me at the time, like, man, you sure brought a lot of stuff. That's too many. And man, I was just clicking them off at $100 a piece. I sold 5 or 6 of them.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So my advice to people that are going to conventions, bring 1 or 2 high ticket items. Sometimes we call that catching a whale. Because most of my price point is $5, $10. I'm not going to get rich too fast. So, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Well, my comic's not all ages because one of the characters is a cigarette. So I also wanted to have an all ages comic book on the table. So that way the kids could have something to grab too. And then also I'm doing a coloring book. So I'll have a special coloring book and a comic book for the kids. Because kids can't buy a comic with a cigarette on it. So
Gotcha. Well, for the convention questions, let's close this out with Carissa. Carissa, what was your convention again? We'll give it a quick shout out.
So CreepyCon is a horror con at the Knoxville Expo Center, August 2nd, 4th. It's 3 days. It's a pretty big convention. I went last year. And
SK, we were just giving you a massive love fest. You missed it.
Yeah. So I had given her my comics last time, and so she sent me a letter this year saying, I read your comics last year, they're fantastic, I want you to be a guest. So it's my first guest shot. I'm also doing the Nashville con at the fairgrounds, which is actually in about 2 weeks, June 1st and June 2nd. I prefer cons that are only 1 day or 2 tops, so I love it that it's only Saturday and Sunday. I hate Friday cons. They're never busy, and they're wasting my time.
Sucks all the energy out of you for Saturday.
Oh, it really does. And then I'm not a fan of cons. I love going the smaller ones because I can interact with people. I like the local ones, Nashville, Knoxville, Gatlinburg, all of those. Any other one, I don't have any interest in going. I'm never going to do like the huge ones. Like you said, I was competing at Fanboy. Sean Astin was there. And I was miserable because I'd rather wait in his line for 3 hours and sit at my table and listen to them talking, which I can't, everyone's over there. So I no longer do the bigger ones, and I'm a happier person for it. So, yeah.
I buy that. You and I talked a little bit about this, and I do think that the convention model is changing a little bit because now, and I realize I sound a little bit like an old man yelling at the sky, but I'll just say my piece and then you can disagree with me if you like. There's a little bit of an element where the conventions used to support the new and upcoming creators, and there was a lot of breaks and things you would get. Now, kind of similar to what Carissa said, I kind of no longer go to conventions unless I'm a guest because I don't think the cost is feasible. And the reality is, if we were in Van Halen, the 4 of us, they wouldn't charge us money to come up and play on their stage. So phrased another way, we're the talent. And I don't mean that in the ego way. I mean it that it is different than the nice person selling custom pet food right next to me. We are not on the same wavelength. And again, that's nothing against them. That's not me putting someone down. But I don't feel that it makes an even playing field for somebody that's trying to sell comics for their living. Yep. So my time is better served to, there's SK. He ain't wrong. He's got me on the library deal. So nice. I'm sorry I was pontificating and bloviating, but SK is exactly right. The secret is to build your own audience. So in closing, I'm going to jump back over to Christopher. So Christopher, man, I wish you every success on this Clove Hitch project. And I'm really grateful that you took some time and tell us your influences. So I guess what I would say to you is, I'm really interested in where your universe is going to go, right? If you could reach back to 11, 12-year-old Christopher, what would you tell him?
That's a heavy question. I don't know. I guess just it's gonna get better. That's all I can say.
That's a tough question, isn't it?
That's a tough question. I wasn't ready for that.
I'll tell you what, I'll just throw mine in just to help maybe grease the wheel.
Yeah.
If I could reach back to 11, 12-year-old me, I would tell him, just do it anyway. People are going to tell you it can't be done. People are going to tell you it's not any good. People are going to tell you that your dream is ridiculous. Just do it anyway. The world is filled with all the people who ignored advice and just did it anyway. And if I think, as you guys maybe know, I started much later too, even later than Carissa did. So if I would have known back then, if I would have started when I was 30 or 40, I'd be cleaning up, brother. But let's switch this around to Warren. Warren, if you could meet your 11 or 12-year-old self, the most impressionable version, what would you tell him?
I would be a lot of the same as what you would tell your younger self. It's you just take the leap and do it. It's what you want to do. I was always my own worst enemy, so it's just stop beating yourself up and and just put your nose down to the grindstone, and you can do it. It is possible.
I like that one. Thank you, Warren, for sharing your time and your wisdom with our panel.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You had some good influences. I really enjoyed them. Carissa, I'm going to save you for last, okay? If you met your 11 or 12-year-old self, who was right at the beginning of understanding these influences and inspirations, what would you tell 12-year-old Carissa Grant?
You're not going to like my answer.
Sure I am. Be yourself, man. Say something shocking and offensive.
Nothing. I don't want to change anything I've done or didn't do or whatever, because exactly where I am now is where I'm supposed to be.
Oh, that's actually a really good answer.
Well, because I love the fact that I already have series 1 and 2 and the prequel already written. And if I had known I was going to do comics, it would have been more pressure. I wouldn't have been able to do it. And, you know, it would have been harder to start. The fact that I have 44 issues for issue 1. I have 30 issues for 2. And each one I can end at any time. You know, I can end at the 44. I can end at the 30. And I like that I have that ability. If I wouldn't have wanted to start making the comics if I hadn't been done with it. Because as soon as I hit series 1 ending, I was like, I don't want to waste a story. It has a great ending and it's a great story. It's a great everything. That's how I want to do it. Also, I thought about when you said it, should I tell myself not to do the issue 1? And yeah, it would have been great not to lose the $5,000 or the $4,000 with the other artists. However,
well, but it's like I often say on the panel, Carissa, we're comic book makers. We're all already independently wealthy, right?
Yeah. But one of the reasons why I found that it was, as much as I hated losing the $5,000, I might not have found my current artist without it. And he was worth losing that $5,000 to find. He's absolutely amazing. Jonas DaCosta is one of the, I could not have gotten luckier with finding him. I mean, he's fast. He's amazing. He draws the character exactly how I want. I wasted thousands of dollars looking for him. And as much as I would love to say, I just go find him, whatever, I have no idea where he was at the time or how to find him. It's just, I found him when I was supposed to find him. So I am a big advocate of things.
What will be.
To happen. Huh?
What will be, will be.
Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of stupid, wasted stuff in my life. And I regret most of the money things. I probably wasted over $50,000 in my life. But everything led to something, and I learned things that I shouldn't have learned, and I grew because of how I did it. I thank you. But yeah, so I unfortunately, if I was stuck seeing myself, we'd probably go see a movie together. But other than that, I probably wouldn't tell them anything. I'd be like, you're in for a treat, and just leave it at that.
You know, I think that's a great answer, Carissa, and I appreciate the existential nature of your answer. You know, I'm a spiritual person, so it does make a lot of sense to me. I guess I do have to admit, though, I've seen The Terminator too many times, so I would definitely go back and I would tell myself some stuff not to do it over again. So, hey, we're just about to our time. So before we wrap things up, let's go around and I'd like you to just do one more call to action. Tell the viewers who you are and where we can find your work. Christopher, let's start with you. Let's talk about Clove Hitch. Who are you? Where can we find your work?
My name is Christopher Albright. You can find me on Facebook at Clovitch. You can find Clovitch on the Kickstarter. It's only this and a beer company. So we're not the beer company. We're the other one.
If you maybe could work that out as a stretch goal where you could ship the customer a couple of
This
beers.
is actually a good idea. I'll hook up with them.
All right, perfect. And really, thanks so much, Christopher, for coming on the show and sharing your inspirations. You had some really good ones.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much.
Hey, so Warren, how about you, buddy? Tell us a little bit about who you are, where we can find you. Where can we find your work?
My name is Lunchbox Warren. You could find me on all of the social media platforms. If you just put in Lunchbox Warren into the search, I should pop up. I am the creator, writer, artist of The Adventures of Sig and Joe, live on Kickstarter right now. We're in our last week. We're already funded, printed, ready to go. And yeah, it's a fun book. It's a great book at a great value. It's a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed the ride.
Perfect. And man, thanks so much for coming on the show, Warren, and sharing your inspirations. You had some really great picks, and I always really learn a lot from a panel like this. Man, I guess I saved the best for last. It's my pal, Carissa. You know, she's the writer over there at Worthy Chaos, and they're doing some quality work. Carissa, as if somebody didn't know you, please tell us where we can find you.
I am anywhere that chaos is. Just search Worthy Chaos. We're the only thing on Kickstarter. However, there's 10 on there. But we're always either live or on pre-launch. We launch every other month. The next one is June 17th. And we have 7 this year total. This is our 3rd one this year. And issue 10 is available. They're already printed. So yeah, they ship out about within 48 hours. So you're going to get your comic. You're going to get the whole series. It's coming whether I lose my house doing it or not. So
spoken like a true creator.
And something that's a little bit different that some people, as I said before, the 2 main characters of Seraphine and Draven are written by 2 different people. So you have that unique personalities between the 2 of them. It gives it a very unique feel to the story. You feel like you're really in their lives dealing with the 2 of them, which kind of sucks for you, but yeah.
Well, I wish you every success with it, Carissa.
Right, thank you.
And I know you're going to do a great job. So
my thanks.
In closing, I just want to say thanks to the viewers for chiming in with their comments. We had a pretty active comment section tonight. I tried to get to the comments as best as I can. I only got 2 hands. But I'm really grateful to the guests for sharing their inspirations because it helps me to learn and to grow as a person. The real question is always is not how we do this, but it's why we do it, right? And that's the part I'm really grateful to you guys for sharing your knowledge and your experience. Well, it's every person's a little different, right? And this was a good group. It was just different enough influences, but we didn't really have any musical guys too much, so I thought there'd be more of that. But maybe that's next week because one of my things is music too. But we'll save that. So other than that, thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next Friday night at 10 p.m.
Thanks for having me on, Tim.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, man, you guys are the best. See you.
You guys are awesome.